But wholesale lending. So if we are lending to a microfinance institution or a bank for agriculture purposes, or if a bank is doing onward lending for agriculture, so that is basically included. That wholesale lending is included, in my targets or commercial banks' targets of agriculture and SME. So I think this is something that central bank has already done, so that policy framework is there. But I would also be interested in knowing your point of view, that why the banks, you said that there are markets where MFIs are allowed to take deposits. So why there is a facility available, there is a mechanism available. Why is it that we have not been able to successfully graduate from MFI to MFB level? So that is also something which we need to think about. Okay, so I'll come back to you. So now, I would like to hear your point of view, Barak Sahab. So do you agree with the lenders? Because lenders think that, there are no challenges they see this sector. Obviously, it's a good sector, but then financial strength remains a challenge, transparency remains a challenge, and then innovation at the level of the institutions to come up with more innovative financial instruments, as Jumia mentioned. Yes. So I think that is also a challenge.
Well, thank you, Atif sir. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be here sitting amongst distinguished panelists and finding a ways to address the funding issue. And I'm sure with collective discussions, we will be able to find some kind of solutions to address this long-standing issue of funding. So you correctly mentioned the issue is there, issue of liquidity is there. And you also correctly mentioned this is more relevant to the NBMFIs. But the kind of information and the kind of knowledge you have is what is lacking generally in the banking sector. The supply side do not have enough information about the sector, how the sector works, what are the players within the sectors. I mean, there are microfinance banks which are being regulated by the central banks. There are non-bank finance companies which are being regulated by SECP. Within NBMFIs, we have for-profit entities, we have not-for-profit entities, and we have entities who are engaged in conventional model, Islamic model, and then there are nano lendings. There are a couple of institutions who are working, and as long as you do not have the in-depth knowledge and understanding of the institution to whom which you are dealing with, that's important to understand, that's important to structure financing solutions. And then you need to understand the corporate and legal structures available for that entity. Like in microfinance banks, they can raise deposits, they can raise equity, they can raise debts. But in not-for-profit, we have only debt instruments. All of funding comes through debt instruments. We can't raise any kind of savings or any kind of equity. Then you need to understand the most important, which is very much important, and to understand the business model under which that particular entity is operating. It is very important to understand their business model, what are their key strengths, how it works. Its governance system is important to understand the kind of board of directors they have, the kind of management they have, and most important, they have right set of policies in place. And the important thing is the kind of credit underwriting policies which are being followed at that institution. It is very important to understand. And considering those factors, you can engage with commercial banks, you can talk to them, you can convince them, and to ensure that the kind of liquidity which they are seeking, they can be provided by the microfinance bank. The other thing which is also very important to understand is regarding the perception of the sector, perception about the sector. Like in our case, Agahe Pakistan, we were incorporated back in 2015, and we have raised a couple of borrowings from commercial banks. Thanks to JS Bank, HBL is there, and along with other, National Bank is one of the greatest supporters of the sector as well as for Agahe Pakistan. So when we engage with the teams, there are a couple of questions which may not be relevant and which may not be factual. Like, it is generally perceived that the sector is of high-risk sector. It is generally perceived that the sector operates on a very informal basis, which actually is not the case. The sector has evolved over a period of time. It has shown its resilience. It has evolved over a period of time, and it has strong systems in place. It has learned from its past, and they have revisited their policies over a period of time. And they try to address that this is not the sector which it used to be. It has gone up, and it is a mature sector. And it has learned from its experiences. The other thing is that the loans being given by the microfinance institutions do not carry any kind of impact, which actually, again, is not the case. It is usually it is perceived on the supply side that the loans which we give them to the microfinance institutions is actually being used for some kind of consumption purpose or managing their cash flows or repaying another loans. In fact, that is not the case. And it is also perceived that this is very vulnerable to climate change. It is very vulnerable to macroeconomic indicators, economic shocks, disasters. But as I mentioned earlier, the sector has evolved and it has learned from the past and it has shown its resilience. And I can see there is not even a single incident where the sector has defaulted to any microfinance, to any commercial lender. And I see no reason not to work with the sector. And this is just like another sector, another corporate who is engaged in manufacturing gas as well as in any kind of business.
Moving on, Shoaib Sahab.